really, you can't force somebody to come
Nope.
along the journey with you and awaken.
Here's how I want you to view it. You wake up in the middle of the night and you get out of bed. Your awakening becomes your partner's disturbance.
But what I've dealt with even more, and I know this is probably going to get you too.
Oh boy.
It's the appeal to emotion.
Number one, do what you will with that information. I literally don't care what you think about this president. And me saying anything about this shouldn't make you think you know what I think. I am unwilling to subject myself to logical fallacies no matter who says them. It just means as soon as I see you do that, I already know you're not confident in your argument. In defense of the president, let me say this. It's pretty much us versus them, period, right?
I think it's important that when you do recognize somebody has that hunger and that desire, you allow them to take the journey with you.
We have been so preoccupied with escape via the rapture that we have forgotten about exit via exodus.
What if I told you you were meant for something more? And what if at first sight your birthright was inked in blood? And what if dominion was written in big bold letters? And what if we shouldn't just occupy but overcome? And what if the observation of opposition was us? Antikemi the Podcast.
Right at the end of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is summing everything up and he makes this statement: enter in at the narrow gate, straight is the way, gate, narrow the way that leads to life. The word for straight there in the King James is just narrow, like not very wide. But the second one, narrow the way, pressure from all directions, squeezing grapes, pressing oil. That's the word there. When we're wanting to exit the matrix, we see the sign, points us straight to Jesus. Revelation 18, come out of her, my people. Right. It's clear. We want out of this system, right? That's what this whole thing is about. Everything that we've been talking about for the last 30 whatever episodes. We want out of this system. We want to operate in this realm, through the other realm, the kingdom of heaven. The place where we're going is supposed to be coming here through us. But the issue is navigating the pressure of that transition. It's a birth canal. And so we want to get into that tonight. How do we engage with the pressure of leaving this thing behind while we're still in it?
I love that. And it's going to tie so perfectly in the surprise that we have, that we teased at the end of last episode. If you don't know what we're talking about, you definitely got to check that out. But before we go any further, we want to welcome you to Antikemi the Podcast. My name is Jonathan.
I'm Shules.
And we are your hosts for the next however long that we're going to y'all. Kick it together.
We're really trying.
We are trying, but sometimes we just got to hit record and just let it flow. We appreciate everybody that has rocked with us. Tonight is the season finale of season 1. When we first kind of started the podcast, we kicked around a couple of ideas of like if we were to kind of make it different seasons and how long a season would be. And we didn't really have a set number in mind. Actually, I kind of did it first. But then as things kind of progressed, I was like,
You never told me.
I wanted it to be a surprise.
What are we doing? What is this officially going to be?
This will be officially episode 30.
Okay.
And so it felt very appropriate for us to kind of put a little pin in season 1. We're not taking a break. In fact, we are amping up everything. So the surprise of what we were saying is that we're actually transitioning the platform to its own dedicated channel.
Yes.
And I'm excited about that because here On the Promised Land Network channel, it was sharing some real estate with some other ministry opportunities, right?
Yes.
Which is good. And we have a lot of great things happening with the church that we help pastor. But with how Antikemi is kind of shaping up, it really deserves its own space. And it's growing. Everybody who has come and subscribed and has liked and commented and shared videos, we have grown the Promised Land channel substantially in the last 6 to 7 months. We could not have done that without you guys. And so right now, even as we're talking about the exodus from the matrix and the system of this world, we need you to have that same energy and follow us over to the new platform on YouTube. That channel name is Antikemi the Podcast. One word. So if you just go in your search bar, hit the @ symbol, and type in Antikemi the Podcast, all one word. Now, I just want to give you a little bit of a disclaimer. We've built such of an algorithm pattern. The Promised Land page is going to come up if you just type in Antikemi, which is cool. This is what we've trained it to do, but we're having to retrain it to have everybody shuffle over to the new channel. And if you didn't know, we're on all the social media platforms. We're on TikTok as Antikemi, on Instagram as Antikemi, and Facebook as Antikemi, but YouTube specifically, Antikemi the Podcast is where you'll find us. And so please, if you've subscribed to this channel, give that channel a subscription, like, comment, share. The videos will be transitioning over there slowly but surely. We're not going to dump them all at once, but after this episode airs, this will be the last time that we're on the Promised Land Network, that we're uploading new content there.
So this is, in other words, going forward, if you want to see the new drops, you're going to have to be on that channel, Antikemi the Podcast. Basically, Promised Land Network is using the analogy of rocketry. Promised Land Network is the first stage booster that got us up through the heavy atmosphere. But now, if we're going to achieve escape velocity, it appears it's a little too algorithmically loaded with the content we've been doing on that channel for
a number of years.
So we got to drop that one, let it go back to what it was originally doing, and
bigger and better. This is a movement. Literally, we're moving. And so it's a movement. It's going to be incredible what we're going to be able to do with the new channel. And with that being said, too, May the 1st is going to be the official kind of launch date. And we're doing a special live episode night. So mark your calendars, May the 1st.
I tried to get him to do the 4th, but
we still want to do 6 p.m.?
I mean, drop it in the comments. Do you like these 6 p.m. drops? We will for May.
May 1st. So May the 1st, we're definitely going to drop around 6 p.m. But we're definitely kind of open and fluid. We want to hear from you. What has been working for you? How can we help serve the people that we're trying to build up and deploy out? All of those things. And so we want to hear from you. We want you to jump in the live feed. Let's get the comment section.
At your host.
Yeah, man, popping. And we're going to have a good time. We're going to deep dive some things together, and hopefully we'll be live on multiple platforms at the same time. So I'm excited. I'm excited about what God is doing. Live Antikemi is something that is growing. And it's because of people like you who've stayed with us for almost a year now as we've fumbled our way through some things. But
learning curve galore.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And tonight we probably will get into picking up a couple of dangling threads and buttoning up some conversations, that kind of thing. But if you haven't been with us on the journey, this conversation is going to be self-contained as a worthwhile discussion. If you are one of the many who are waking up to this realization for however long it's been going on for you, that number one, there is more to reality than what we have been aware of
Yeah.
or taught.
Yeah.
And that there's a lot of false narratives and disinformation and misinformation floating around as well. But more importantly, if you're one of the many, becoming aware that God is breathing on his people and awakening a remnant who have no desire to continue to cooperate and perpetuate the oppression of Adam's race, of the human race, as an energy source to be harvested by hell. If you want out of Babylon, that's what we're about. That's what we mean when we say Exodus. That's what we mean when we say Antikemi. We believe the kingdom of heaven lies opposite to all of that, but it is the tools are all there and the operating system is there, but learning how to use it is the journey.
I want to encourage somebody too, because if you're like me, as you have come online and you've been awakened by some things, really, you can't force somebody to come along the journey with you and awaken. That's one thing I kind of really appreciate about you. You've been on this path a little longer, probably a lot longer than I have, with some of the things
Only
that you
aware of it a little longer.
Yeah.
You picked up pretty quick that something was going on you wanted in.
I did, but you never like beat your chest and like shout it out loud, everybody wake up, there's fire in the building, you know. I think this is a situation where the people that you have influence in your sphere,
yes, sir,
whatever sphere of influence that the Lord has allowed you to have, you start to just walk with people and just pay attention to what they're hungry for. Pay attention to what they may say or may not say, and use those opportunities to just be salt and light. And you would be really surprised at how many people are hungry for something but just don't have the language to express that they're wanting a change.
Or agreed, or haven't even registered that in their conscious mind yet.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it. That doesn't mean they can.
Right.
I want to leverage what you just said as an opportunity to encourage people that are dealing with the frustration, the inevitable frustration of seeing reality as it really is more clearly than you ever have, probably by orders of magnitude, because a lot of us do feel like we are waking up out of a lifelong dream. And it's like, oh, that was all a dream. You know, it's very clear. But those that you are connected to and tied to may not be even interested, or they may be actively disinterested in what you're going through. They may be writing you off as having, you know, gone off the reservation, lost your dang mind, all of that.
All of the above.
And I want to encourage you because, number one, I in the plot promise in the opening, I referenced Jesus from Matthew 7. He did say that it's a narrow gate. Not many find it, and not everybody who finds it gets through it.
That's right.
But also, I want to encourage you to remember or to take stock of everything that your father had to, your heavenly Father had to allow you to go through without forcing your hand, that got you to this place and how many times in that journey you had a negative reaction to somebody who was trying to tell you about the Matrix, who was trying to tell you about the illusion, who was trying to tell you that they were seeing something and it triggered you. And I want you to take stock of that and realize that at all of those steps along the journey, God chose not to force you against your will, because he doesn't do that. And yet he continued to allow those disturbances to stack up in your life to the extent that at some point you heard the alarm and stopped hitting snooze. Because a lot of the time when we react that way poorly to somebody who is trying to tell us, hey, this version of reality is not it. There's something more. There's something deeper going on. But what we're really doing is we're hitting the snooze.
Yes.
We don't we're having a reaction because we're not ready to respond. And so I want to encourage you to realize that their negative reaction is not necessarily a good indicator of where they're at in their process. They could be a day away from their own awakening.
That's good.
They just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
Or they could be 10 years away. But either way, your awakening, and here's how I want you to view it. Have you ever, for those of you that are married, or you wake up in the middle of the night and you get out of bed, your awakening becomes your partner's disturbance.
Come on, man.
Apparently that was a phone drop moment. So
That's crazy. Yeah, you're right.
that's what you are. Your awakening is their disturbance. Be okay with that. Be okay with them being disturbed. You are a mechanism of God in their life right now. It's okay that they're disturbed. You were supposed to be their disturbance, but you're not their awakening. The breath of God is, the Spirit of God is.
Goodness gracious.
So don't own the piece that's not yours, and don't take the reaction personally. It's not even directed at you. So I just want to encourage you. Your awakening is their disturbance. Let them be disturbed. And if they need to see themselves out of your life for a season, that just comes with the awakening. That's just a part of the process. And first of all, it doesn't mean it's forever. And second of all, your insistence on holding on to those who are not ready to go where you're going of their own volition,
Come on.
will not bear good fruit. It will only complicate your journey. Just ask Abraham about Lot. You know, there's plenty of examples of this in Scripture. You got to be careful about forcing people. What you're doing is you're forcing them to hatch before they have the strength to leave the egg, or come out of the cocoon before they're ready. You know, if they don't have the strength yet to do it, or the drive to do it on their own, you're only hurting them and slowing yourself down.
Not everybody's meant to go on the path with you.
Right.
I love how you mentioned Abraham with Lot, but I also think about Naomi and Ruth.
Yep.
And there was another
Yep.
daughter-in-law, what's it, Orpah?
Yep.
She said, I'm not built to go where you're going. I'm going to stay right here with my people. I'm not going back.
Not only did Naomi hold that without judgment,
Right.
she actually, the whole thing started as her urging it, because she recognized this was her journey.
Yes. And Ruth was the one who pushed her way to the front of the line of us saying, I am absolutely, like, your people is going to be my people.
Yep.
And so I think it's important that when you do recognize somebody has that hunger and that desire, you allow them to take the journey with you.
Yep.
And you are the guardrails, basically, for her to find her next, or find their next.
Yes, sir.
I love it. I love it, love it, love it. So do you want to clean up some past threads first? Or you want to?
That's great. Let's do it.
Cool. Well, just even before we do that, as I was kind of looking back, man,
See how he does this? It's bait and switch.
I got to keep you on your toes, sir. Just kind of like reviewing, we had a lot of content. I mean, a lot of content, wide ranging. But some of my favorite moments, I guess you could say, are the things that we've kind of covered, has been understanding that we haven't really ever read our Bible.
Right.
Deeply enough. The Bible deep dives have been tremendous for my edification. I know it's been for other people as well. Understanding that the system wants to get or leverage a reaction out of you.
Yes.
And they're leveraging what you don't know against you.
Yes.
That's been kind of a reoccurring thing that I've really enjoyed.
The system, meaning the system of this world, the system that is underpinning the whole version of reality that is being billed as reality.
Right. And we've like pulled on multiple threads from understanding how manipulation works, understanding how fear works, understanding how there's different motifs even in scripture. We just talked about that with cosmic geography on how those different locations, both in the natural and in the spiritual realm, work and how we're supposed to interface with them, right?
And all we did was tap that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
there's so much more that we could kind of discover and go along for that ride. But one of my favorite themes that we've talked about has been understanding the importance of dialogue. But even before we get to dialogue and discourse is how to think.
Yeah.
And even recognizing that we don't know how to do that.
Right.
Because we don't trust the process. We want everything fast forwarded. We have kind of a microwave mentality with everything. And so if it's already heavily processed for us, we're satisfied because it's quick. It's easy. But if we're having to do the processing and the thinking and the meditating on our own behalf, we're easily falling really, really prey to people taking advantage of us.
I mean, let's also just be real that it's not just laziness that we want someone else to process our information for us. A lot of people want to, nowadays there's a whole movement of people that want to homestead or have a garden, be more connected to the earth, but also like know what's in their food and experience being a part of that cycle and all of that. But they quickly discover as soon as they get into it that there's a whole body of knowledge that you have to have that has been lost.
Come on.
And I'm blessed to have been raised in that environment. And even myself, when I put my hand to that kind of thing, I'm having to dig back 30 years and go, now what did I learn? What do I know about this? And I know enough to get me pointed in the right direction, but also to see how overwhelming this would be for somebody who doesn't have the framework that I have from having been raised in that agricultural environment. So I believe that one of the drivers of people subjecting themselves to super processed intake, whether it's food or mental food, information, is this sense of like, but I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to process it. That's why I need it processed.
Yeah.
But
they're overwhelmed with the thought of having to break this information down. And what I will say is this, and I've fallen kind of victim to this lately, is when we have tools like AI that can quickly do our thinking for us, even if if we do not continue to flex the muscle of our brain and our creativity, we can easily fall prey to, okay, I could just type a prompt in and it could do all of the work, all the thinking. Instead of leveraging it as a tool, we use it as a crutch instead. And we cripple ourselves in the process.
And every layer of added innovation in the tech world over the last 2 decades, at least, I mean, really before that too, but every layer of added innovation has made the process of obtaining information infinitely easier, but it has simultaneously made the process of verifying that information infinitely harder. And AI has what we're calling AI, by which we mean these consumer-facing large language models that everybody is using, which is not the only kind of AI that exists.
Right.
It's definitely not the most powerful AI that exists, but it is what everyone on the street is talking. It's what the streets are talking about.
Yes.
That particular kind of AI has a fundamental flaw built in because all it is a mathematical engine that analyzes patterns of speech or patterns of writing,
Yes.
and reflects them back to us. And it's so freaking good at guessing that it really does.
Mimics a personality.
Yeah. But because of that, it is built into the model, no matter how carefully you prompt it. And they've tested this repeatedly on all the models, that the longer the conversation goes, the more the AI is going to skew toward reflecting you back to you.
Yeah.
And because of that, even people who are being very careful in how they prompt it, which is very few people, but even those who are being super careful about how they prompt it to try to keep it from just confirming their biases and deepening their own delusions.
That's the word.
Even they, when they get into long form discussions, and I'm using air quotes, with those models, mathematically the models have to skew toward reflecting them because it's just built into how they function. So this is really exceedingly dangerous, because confirmation bias is one of the main drivers of how people think anyway. And something we constantly have to be on guard for. But now the enemy is in the camp. We literally have a model that is not cognitively, but computationally far more advanced than we are. So not cognitively, but computationally far more advanced than we are.
Yeah.
I think I'm saying that right.
No, you are.
It is actively working against us to try to subject us to our own confirmation bias. We have to be on the alert for that.
Yeah. I think that's part of recognizing how comfortable the Matrix is.
Yes.
And if we haven't already explained this, let's just do it for anybody new listening. When we say the word matrix, that's actually inside Scripture.
Yeah.
It means womb. That's really what it boils down to it. And if you've ever seen, I guess, the telltale namesake of the movie, The Matrix, the process of people being born again, of them being awakened, they're literally going through a birthing process, breaking out of the placenta and going through the birth canal, all of it is very much metaphorical, but it's talking about new birth happening, right? So we're saying coming out of the matrix, and I love it how you framed it in the very beginning of like, it's a narrow gate, it's a narrow opening, and there's pressure that's put. Without the pressure,
you don't move through the canal.
Don't move through the canal. That's the whole process of the push.
Yes.
If you don't have anything that is weighing on you, causing you to move towards the exit, you'll never move. And that's exactly what took place in the literal exodus from the scriptures.
Right.
There was 10 plagues of pressure that affected not just the Egyptians, but it was also affecting the mentality of the Israelites,
yes,
who have been in bondage for so long. It was very easy for them to revert back to default settings.
Yep.
When times got hard, we had the fruit and the vegetables, and we had all these things in Egypt, but we're out here in the desert, and we don't have access to those things. We also had bondage and slavery in Egypt, too.
Yes.
You leave that out.
Yes.
But what you have a desire for is going to come up to the forefront when the pressure is put on you.
Right.
It's what is inside you is going to come out. And so I think those plagues was the Most High God not only flexing for the entire world to see and also break the backs of the Egyptians, but it was also showing the Israelites like, hey, this process is not going to be smooth sailing. There's going to be pressure attached to it. And pressure could either burst pipes or create a diamond. It's all how you react to that pressure being put.
Yes.
So we're just saying, like, when you're escaping from the matrix, that's that womb we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, God told Abraham, your descendants will go to a country that isn't their own. They'll be oppressed 400 years. You know, after that, I will bring them out with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. All of that was foretold, and yet when Moses stood in front of the bush that burned, God didn't say, go down to Egypt and bring my people up because the due date is here.
Nope.
Because the due date was there.
Yeah.
You could argue slightly overdue, potentially.
No, it was.
But what he did do was say, go down there and lead them out, deliver them, because the cry of the people has come up in my ears. Their oppression is hard, their bondage is heavy, their cry has come up in my ears. So God times that pressure to push us out of the matrix, the womb, when the due date is there. And anybody who's ever been a part of the birthing process, whether in the animal kingdom, like there was a lot of that growing up with livestock, or, in terms of human birth, you recognize extreme danger when the baby gets stuck in the birth canal for too long.
Yes.
Or the water breaks and they're not exiting the womb, all of that, which that's a piece that I was like, man, I wanted to get into it when we were talking about the sea and all of that spiritual geography stuff. And I wanted to get into the whole, like, how water functions as a portal, because, that's how we all come into this world, out of the matrix, through the water.
Yes.
We come up out of the water and into new life. But that is, all of that process is designed to make us too uncomfortable where we are to stay, so that we will endure the pressure of the transition, so that we can come into the new world. And it happens again and again and again, because there was all that went on in Egypt. Then there's all the pressures of the wilderness. So all of that 10 plagues in Egypt was to get the Hebrews out of Egypt. All the stuff in the wilderness was to get Egypt out of the Hebrews. Then you cross over into Canaan, and all of a sudden you've got giants and walls, and there's always pressure in the canal. In transition, there's always pressure. And the very harsh reality of that is that the pressure of the birthing process is not only designed to push the baby out of the matrix and into the new world, but it is also designed to reveal whether or not the baby is viable in the new world. There is such a thing as not making it through that process.
Yeah.
So it's serious business. Not everybody survives it.
Because it's comfortable inside the womb.
Yes.
The baby is getting everything that it needs. All the nutrients, all of the sustenance. It's breathing. It's doing all the things that it needs to do. And it comes a time where it's time for you to exit. That's trauma by itself.
I mean, most of what it's doing, you're so right. It's got everything it needs, but most of it is being processed by the mother's body.
That's what I'm talking about, yes. And there's a price to be paid.
Yeah.
Regardless. And it's time.
And that can only carry you to a certain state of development.
Right. And so I think this is such a perfect conversation for us, just with the layers of us literally moving to a different channel, literally preaching the necessity of us continuing to wake up.
Yes.
Continuing to exit what has enslaved us so long. And the choice is given to us. Like, nobody is forcing you to make this choice.
No. But a lot of us are too uncomfortable to go back to resting in this condition. Mm-hmm. And that's good, because if we did, we would die there.
Yeah.
And so it's good that we're that uncomfortable with it. But this is the process that we're in, and we've become aware that a lot of you are in it too. And so we've said it before, we'll say it again now that we're going to a new home online for this podcast. The goal here is not to build a channel. We have to do that to achieve the goal.
Right.
But the goal is not to build the channel. It is to facilitate a movement that we believe he is building.
Yes.
And we just want to be part of the facilitation process of that movement, because we'll get into this more as we go tonight. But I believe that's what we are responding to, is the fact that God has heard the cry of his people, and he has decided that the due date is here. It is time for us to get out of this cycle of bondage to a system that was never designed to bring us into that for which he created us.
Yeah.
The time has come for us to exit that system and come into a system that supports the life he created us to live.
I would go so far, and I think we can kind of coin this term. I agree 100%. We're not trying to just build a channel. We're trying to build a chassis. We're trying to build a framework.
Yes, sir.
For the motor to sit inside.
Yes, sir.
And the motor, we're not the motor.
Right.
We're just a framework that allows the motor to operate at its full potential and get this vehicle in the right direction.
That's so good.
And so that's just our goal. That's our mentality. And like you were trying to find something earlier to read.
Oh, I found it. Whenever we get into the Exodus deeper, I was going to read it.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, so back to my what I was saying originally, as far as like our dilemma, as far as not knowing how to think.
Yes.
I think the problem we've kind of run into recently is when we run into somebody who does know how to think, they can hit us with what I think is so properly termed logical fallacies.
Right.
And if you've run into anybody that knows how to argue and they know how to kind of manipulate a conversation and send the discussion in whatever direction they want to, especially if they're losing the argument or their argument doesn't carry much weight by itself, they can easily derail the conversation a certain way where you can leave very much defeated. And you may have had the better talking points. You may have had the truth on your side. But the way it was framed, it completely took you down a distracted path.
Yes.
You know, and so we wanted to kind of touch on that in a previous episode, but it was going to get too much. But I think this is something that we could certainly dive a little bit deeper into and telling people like, hey, be aware of this. And this is how we navigate these type of logical fallacies.
Yeah, I want to also build on what you just said in terms of the fact that people, especially, you're right, when their argument lacks support or they at least haven't done the work to find that support, will usually resort to a very predictable list of logical fallacies to come at you with. I think even more insidious than that is the fact that I think most, if not all of us, quite regularly inflict logical fallacies on ourselves while we are trying to parse an issue. We're we could be down a rabbit hole or just trying to learn about something, but unaware that one of the things that is making it really challenging for us to actually discern what is truth and what is real is that we are so susceptible to internal logical fallacies.
Yeah.
Many of which are driven by our need for identity and belonging. And that, pardon me, that goes back to Andrew Heaton's book that we have referenced a few times, Tribalism is Dumb.
Yeah.
So much of everything we interact with in this false reality overlay that we call the Matrix is just predicated on people forming tribes or being inducted into tribes, whether they know it or not, and finding a sense of belonging by, adopting a certain set of values or beliefs or whatever. And we become incredibly reflexively defensive of those positions because tribes feel safe.
They do.
And getting kicked out of the tribe feels terrible. Mm-hmm. And so, man, we are quick to build a protective framework in our mind to actually shield us from anything that could challenge an idea or a belief or a value that the tribe holds dear.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that. And so we use all kinds of logical fallacies on ourselves to con ourselves into being able to continue to wave the banner that we've chosen to wave. So I agree. We run into it all the time, either someone pointing a logical fallacy at us or us pointing one at them, especially in the realm of online debate, which is almost always purely a waste of time anyway for everybody and energy. But also I think more deeply, it's internal. Mm-hmm. We think that we have researched something because we found a list of things that make us feel good about what we suspected.
Come on. That's the confirmation bias.
100%.
Already, yeah.
I mean, one presupposition that people, I think, almost universally have a really hard time getting past is this is what they taught us in school. So if someone comes and tells me something that flies in the face of what I was systematically taught over the course of 12 to 20 grades, depending on how high you went, in the world of academia, that's stupid. By default, you're stupid for saying that because 30 different authority figures over the course of 15 different years drilled into me that you're wrong. But so often, like, we're not comparing ideas to ideas or evidence to evidence. We are having a reaction to something that challenges what we were told, but we don't remember the list of evidences that we were given, if any, to support what we were taught. So we are inoculated against any evidence that could. We've had our shot and all our boosters. Yeah. We are thoroughly inoculated against anything that could challenge this. The Bible has a word for that. That's called a stronghold.
Yes, it is.
And nothing should be predicated on that. Mm-hmm. Nothing should be built on that framework. It doesn't mean that what you were taught was wrong. It just means you believe it for the wrong reasons, which is not a good reason to believe things.
No, it's not. Well, I know that we talked about this last time with how you were kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not trained, but how you were just like brought up with how to think and the importance of it. Do you have like any favorite logical fallacies that you've encountered? I mean, like anybody who's like chronically online has definitely seen their fair share.
Ironically enough, this one is not one that even the people that raised me were impervious to. We all do it. We've all done it. It's very obvious. We talk about it more than we talk about other logical fallacies, but it's a big one, ad hominem.
Oh, yeah, that was my favorite.
I mean, there's a whole phrase that we all use on the regular that's actually designed to prevent an ad hominem attack. Don't shoot the messenger.
I did not know that was tied to that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Well, I'm just deducing that.
Yeah.
Don't shoot the messenger is very literally trying to shield you from an ad hominem attack.
Yeah.
Just because you don't like what I have to say doesn't mean that the correct thing to do is to attack me. Engage the message.
Yes. Engage the argument.
It doesn't even mean I'm right. It just means the problem is not me. Engage with the idea. I'm bringing something to the table Let's deal with what's on the table, not with who brought it, not with who we brought it to. But it's so easy to slip into that, well, of course you would say that. You're, a Democrat. You're a Republican. You're a, it
derails conversations from the very beginning.
That's right.
It doesn't allow you to ever engage in serious discourse, because now you're having to either defend your character, defend who you are. And what I've seen from people who are astute in recognizing those things early on, that's where the conversation stops. It's just like, no, we're not interested in the debate anymore. We're not interested in actually sharing different ideas back and forth and propping up evidences against each other. You just want to call names. You want to just deride, who you think I am, instead of attacking what I've actually presented.
Yep.
If you would disagree with it, explain why, without having to tear the person down behind it. You know what I mean?
And we have the President of the United States is a master of the ad hominem attack.
Yes.
He often uses it preemptively, as a preemptive strike. Yeah. An example is Sleepy Joe Biden says, Pocahontas says.
Yeah, they've already reframed them in your mind.
That is called framing a conversation. You are not going to have an honest engagement with whatever idea is being put forth by the person being quoted when you begin by framing them in a negative light. So, number one, do what you will with that information. I literally don't care what you think about this president, and me saying anything about this shouldn't make you think you know what I think about this president.
Right.
I am unwilling to subject myself to logical fallacies, no matter who says them.
Yeah.
If my pastor does it, that doesn't mean I have to go along with it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I have to get ugly about it, but it just means as soon as I see you do that, I already know you're not confident in your argument. I don't know who's right, but I know you're not confident that it's you.
Yeah.
Because you're not allowing the argument to rest on that. Now,
you told on yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, just in defense of the president, let me say this. I think he also, being a student of human nature the way he is aware that most of his audience doesn't actually give a rat's patootie what the fact is.
Nope.
That's not what's going to sway them. So even if he is confident in his argument, he's thinking about how to move the masses.
That's it.
Which is actually what his job is.
And it's effective.
Which really tells you, it tells on him, but it tells on us.
It does. Because if you have somebody who is really good at bullying or really good at roasting,
yes,
they can bring all the attention on something that is inconsequential to what's actually being talked about or presented. And they can bring that attention to something very much low.
Yes.
Low frequency, if I could say.
Yes.
And the people who resonate with that, they'll attach themselves to that low frequency because it's easier to just vibrate at that lower frequency in that moment.
I just saw, to that point, a video that had gone, viral on some level of a woman on the train in Santa Monica, the subway or whatever, public train, the commuter rail in Santa Monica, California, who was attacked by a stranger. The woman who attacked her came up behind her while she was sleeping with her head resting on the, side of the bus or whatever, and just smacked her so hard, I think with a purse or something, that it knocked her out of her seat. She actually said she thought a bomb or something had gone off, but knocked her out of her seat, knocked her unconscious for a second. When she came to, she couldn't see for a few seconds, that kind of thing. I mean, it really reset her. And it looked to me like the woman who attacked her probably was in some kind of a mental health crisis. So I'm not even throwing stones at the person who hit her. Yeah. It was a very unfortunate situation, but it looked like there were probably some factors involved. Nonetheless, terrifying to be in the position of the woman who got attacked. And the video opens because, of course, the woman who got attacked is the one filming, so she didn't start filming until she had collected herself enough to do that. So you don't see all the stuff that played out beforehand. But the video opens with her attacker standing a few feet away, giving her a stare I wouldn't be comfortable with. And the woman who's been attacked is kind of whimpering and saying, "Is anybody going to help me?" And there are all these men, mostly, kind of standing, like some of them are holding the handrail, and a couple of them are sitting, and you can tell everybody's just deeply uncomfortable. But their self-preservation instincts, I think, had them kind of holding back at first, not wanting to get in the mix.
Right.
But when the woman filming says, is anybody going to help me? Are you going to help me? Am I going to be like the woman in New York who died on the train? Then there's like this kind of, you see people kind of cast their gaze downward, look at their feet, and get uncomfortable and start shuffling around and helping her. And they do. They help her, to their credit. It just made me think, what's kind of driving that decision to help this woman? It'd be interesting to know, because apparently their instinct was not to jump in and help. These were not the same people that, you heard about on 9/11 who were saying, let's roll and all that. Yeah. This is not that crowd. And it could be guilt. They could feel guilty. But I wonder how much of the decision to help her is the realization, I'm on camera. I'm being filmed.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to be the villain in a story that goes viral that didn't help. I think that this thing about who we want to be known as, who we want to be identified with, how we want to be perceived, drives so much of how we engage with the world around us, that we do ourselves a real disservice when we're not honest with ourselves about that.
Yes.
So one of the first things I can say that has helped me in my life is learning to take a moment as soon as you have an instinctive reaction to any situation, any statement, any idea, and step back and observe yourself having that reaction, hopefully while it's still on the inside of you.
Right.
The quicker you learn to catch it, the better. But even if you catch yourself mid-rant, that's better than before. As soon as the observer becomes aware, you have an opportunity to step out of the lower animal nature, to step out of the what we call the dust of the earth consciousness state, and come up a level higher and watch yourself and your reaction, and ask the uncomfortable questions. Where is that reaction coming from? What is being threatened? Because it's virtually always that something is being threatened. And a lot of times the answer is going to come down to something that is very core to how you perceive yourself. It's threatening. Like, why does it offend me that you believe X and I believe Y? Well, probably because I take a level of pride in being one of the people that believes Y. Or I take a level of security from it because I think people who believe in X are going to burn in a lake of fire. Yeah. And so I'm terrified to even consider why they believe X. Well, if you won't engage with why they believe X, how are you going to help them? And if you really do believe that X is going to put them in eternal torment, you're okay with not engaging with that idea and helping?
Yeah, that's weird.
But also, how sure are you of your position if you're scared to hear what made them believe theirs?
Yeah. I think that even leads to one of my favorite ones, and that's the straw man. And I can say I probably didn't understand this one as much. I used to hear it all the time. And I think that people have, like, coined or they throw around straw man.
Yeah, it's one of those terms like narcissist, gaslighting.
Yeah, it's just like, it doesn't apply everywhere.
Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's that.
Yeah, right. Just because you don't like it or don't agree with it doesn't mean they are straw manning you. Because
ironically, that can be a form of ad hominem or straw man,
a circular reasoning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, so straw man is like where somebody is misrepresenting their position to make it easier to attack it. And that has a level of intention, I think, behind it.
Yes.
Somebody may not genuinely understand what your position may be, and so the way they're representing it just may not be accurate. And that's when you need to make sure, if you're engaging in honest discourse, like, hey, do you understand my position, actually? Give them an opportunity to be able to explain it. And if it's wrong, that's when you're able to add correction to it.
Yep.
And so it's like, okay, like, let's talk about what I actually believe and what I actually have said, not the caricature of what you think I believe, because that's an easier target for you to, like, tear up. You know what I mean?
One of the big areas where I've seen that straw man fallacy play out is if you have only learned about a position from the opponents of that position.
Oh, come on.
You have not heard that position presented in its best light.
No.
So in order for someone to argue as capably as can be argued for a position, they almost always have to be vested in that position. There's exceptions. Some academics are so rigorous and so aware that they are going to be subjected to such intense review by their peers that they will sometimes do a really good job of representing the countervailing position. There's still limitations to it because they don't agree with it. Yeah. So it's hard to really quantify it in the best way it can be quantified. So reading books about how wrong people who believe a thing are, or watching videos about how wrong people who believe a thing are, it can be a step in the process, but that's not research.
It can't be the whole process.
That's not researching that thing.
No.
That's researching the counter position.
Yeah.
So now you need to, if you're going to actually understand the issue, you need to go hear it framed in the words of those who hold that position.
I think a great example for me was, like, it's been the Hebrew Israelite movement.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times people who have come in, contact with that group of individuals, try to pick my words carefully. I got some brothers who I love dearly who they subscribe to that way of thinking. Too. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I had to actually learn and actually hear from them. This is what I believe. If I framed my whole defense based upon people who do not agree with that belief, and I don't personally agree with it myself, but if I did all of my research based upon just opposition to it, I agree. You haven't done the necessary research. And if you're going to be that invested in opposing it, you have to allow yourself to be inundated with their point of view. So that way, as I'm dismantling the argument, I'm able to properly dismantle it from, hey, no, this is what you believe. And so a lot of times I've said, okay, do you believe this? Like I'm steel manning, which is the opposite of the straw man, right?
Yes.
I'm steel manning my counterpoint by making sure I'm still manning their position
by
first.
making sure you are responding to their actual position.
Yeah, so you're saying this, you believe this, right? Yes. Okay. So based upon that belief system, this is where I disagree. Boom. And then you're able to now start the discussion.
And when you're done talking, listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't listen to respond. Definitely don't listen to react. But listen. Hear them out. I believe that it's really dangerous to go into a situation where you're going to be engaging an idea like that if you are heavily vested in coming out the other end looking right. It can matter to you, especially in situations where you really know that truth is at stake. However, ask yourself if you feel the anger rising or your breath starts coming in short or you start trembling a little. All of that is signals that you're actually going into your parasympathetic nervous system, which means automatically you feel threatened. Not truth is being threatened. You are being threatened. Yeah. If just truth was being threatened, your mind would be razor sharp. You would be thinking so clearly because you would be aware what's at stake here is truth. There is distortion and deception afoot, and I need to try to help either the person I am interacting with or those who may be bystanding. I need to help them be aware of where the distortion is. That will have you in a very clear, very sober, careful state of mind that balances all of the factors, including people's souls and all of that. When you start getting those physiological responses, that is no longer what is being threatened. And it's important to recognize that now ego has entered the chat.
Come on.
Because you feel threatened. Otherwise, your parasympathetic nervous system would not be kicking in. And you have to remember, you can't run the parasympathetic nervous system and your cognitive thinking at the same time.
Nope.
So you are now going to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and most likely fight in that context. And so now it's time to really honestly interrogate that. Well, why do I feel threatened? This was about truth when we started. Why do I feel threatened?
Yeah.
And be willing to understand that a level of humility can be required to say to somebody, Let me look at that. I feel very strongly about this issue, but point well taken.
Yeah.
Let me take a look at that.
I mean, that takes vulnerability and humility.
Now we're having a conversation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think straw manning. Maybe this isn't fair to say. I'll say it about myself. When I have resorted to straw man tactics, it has not typically come from an honest place.
Not you, Shules. Not you resorting to the straw man.
Many is the time. Because it's so easy. It's exactly what the false light bearer did in the garden.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Completely misrepresented.
Did God really say, let me just slightly misquote him to reframe him in this conversation? So that's it's like a straw man that has a subtle ad hominem in it. So ad hominem is attack the person instead of the concept. Straw man can be encapsulated as argue with the cartoon version.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take this idea out of 3D, flatten it down to 2D to make it easier to step on.
Yeah.
But if we love the truth, what does that accomplish?
Absolutely nothing.
For anybody.
No. Speaking of love of the truth, I'm very interested in getting your take on this because this could be, I almost use another logical fallacy to even explain it, a slippery slope. But
yeah,
the appeal to authority. And I know a lot of times, especially when you're having any type of theological debate about something, there is an air of, well, the church fathers have said this, you know, or so-and-so has said this, or even how people have appealed to Scripture as the authority. How do we thread that needle and navigate that when we do understand there is a thing as such as capital T truth that is an ultimate authority? There is someone that we place our hope and our trust in, the words of Jesus, of course, but still understanding, okay, that can easily be a logical fallacy that we fall prey to in shutting down honest discourse with somebody because we've been like, well, your argument is good, but I'm just going to say no because a higher authority says otherwise, and that shuts the entire conversation down.
Yeah. So the way you stated that is a little multi-layered, I think. Just addressing one layer that I think is a little bit of a side quest, but I want to get it out of the way so that we can hone in on just the fallacy. You touched on, so appeal to authority often looks like science says, somebody said today in a video that I came across my feed, science says, and it made me laugh out loud because that is such a lazy way of putting that. It's very hard to take anything seriously that comes next.
Yeah.
But I think it actually works a lot. Let me just help somebody. Science doesn't say anything. Scientists say.
Come on, somebody.
But.
That's funny.
Right? But that's a great example of appeal to authority. Without doing any work, without citing a single study, without quoting a single scientist and defining what field of discipline they are in.
Right.
Without giving us anything falsifiable. There was falsifiable meaning I can test this and see if it fails. Without giving us any falsifiable information, you have just subtly boosted the value of whatever you say next. And this is huge in realms like TikTok. Science says they is a big one. They is often an appeal to authority.
Yeah, that pronoun gets a whole lot of flack.
I think that appeal to authority often shows up in that kind of a way where it's like, I mean, the silliest version of it that I think a lot of us can relate to from growing up is my dad said, I can't tell you how many times Brendan has come running in the house hot with a friend in pursuit. They come in yelling. It happened yesterday. They come in yelling. I'm like, whoa, what is happening? Brendan says, Dad, is it true or not that you have a shotgun? I said,
Who's asking?
Who asked? What is happening right now?
Oh, man.
I can neither confirm nor deny. And I felt kind of bad for him because he had told his friend that his dad had a shotgun. His friend called BS.
Your dad's a pastor. There's no way he has a shotgun.
And I had to give him the old I can neither confirm nor deny because there's an 8-year-old kid that lives across the street that doesn't need to know whether or not there are firearms within arm's reach, right? Which they're not within arm's reach if they exist.
For the record.
For the record. But the point being, we've all been there as kids. My dad says, maybe your dad went to get the milk and never came back, but your mom, your uncle, your whatever, whoever. We've all been in that argument. That's appeal to authority. And it's funny to me how often one of my kids has used it and then thoroughly misquoted me. But even if they quoted me right, just because I said it doesn't mean it's true, which is a thing they start to realize when they get older. In my case, because I am a genuine person, it does mean that I believed that when I said that. But in order to understand whether it's valid or not, you're going to have to do the work. Again, we're back to this who's processing it for you thing, right? So I think appeal to authority, I guess I'm answering the main question first from my perspective. Appeal to authority is most often, in my experience, a way to avoid doing the hard work of validating an idea.
That's right.
Because it's easier to say so-and-so said it and they're paid to know. Or they have a lot of letters after their name or whatever. Now, do you agree with that basic evaluation?
Absolutely.
Now, you raised this issue of Scripture, and I think that touches on something else, which is this. Y'all, we, the hosts of this podcast, and I'm sure many, many of our viewers, we hold the 66-book canon of Scripture that is used in most Protestant churches. We do hold that as the Word of God and the ultimate authority on everything.
Yeah.
We don't believe that our view of it is nearly so infallible.
That's correct.
Our understanding of it, but we do believe that is what that library of books is, right?
Yes.
Last time I made the statement that the fear of looking at other books seems silly to me because these are supposed to be the spectacles to look at everything. It's supposed to be the prism, the lens that we look at everything through.
Yeah.
So why can't I look at something else? I'm gonna hold it up to this, right? To see if it holds up. That being said, not everybody believes that. And this goes to one of the main issues that we have when trying to have discussions in the public sphere. I refer to it a lot as presuppositions. To suppose something means to place whatever you are looking at underneath this. Suppose, to place under.
Right.
So if I suppose something to be true, it means that regardless of any evidence I may be about to see, I have already decided that X is true. In my case, a great one that I'm going to carry into everything I look at is going to be that this Bible and the God it describes, that is ultimate truth and the supreme authority that dictates everything else. I do suppose that in every context that I go into, right?
Yes.
I've already determined that. So that means by nature, that belief is a presupposition that I carry into every conversation, every
Without
rabbit
even
hole.
recognizing it. Yeah.
Well, I try to recognize it,
Yeah.
but my awareness of it doesn't change the fact that that is the presupposition I'm carrying in. So a presupposition just means you suppose this before the discussion takes place. You suppose this before the research takes place. You have to have presuppositions. I would argue you have to have presuppositions. Constraints and boundaries are the mechanism that enables perception. If nothing has boundaries or constraint, borders, it's called a void. Like if you're looking at anything that has no boundaries or constraints, it's a void.
Yeah.
So the very way that this is something I've been wanting to get into. This starts to touch on like things like sacred geometry and things like that. How does an infinite creator comport himself in such a way that he can be perceived and interacted with?
Yeah. Yeah.
Boundaries and constraints. He has to, of his own volition, place certain boundaries in place that even he is subjecting himself to. To give perceptible shape to his infinity. So that the finite, can interact with it.
Interact, yes. Even sense him.
Right. So the thing that enables that sensory process is boundaries, rules, limitations. And so the universe is God constraining himself to a set of presuppositions. In this space, I am going to honor this set of presuppositions that enable me to interact with the finite. How does the infinite touch the finite? This is how. Otherwise, it can't be perceived.
Exactly.
And so I say all that to say that presuppositions are necessary because they give shape to our reality, right? You have to carry
a boundary.
You have to carry some boundaries into the conversation to have one. But two things. One, presuppositions of which you are not aware are not usually helpful. If you don't know that you presuppose something, it is going to color your perception of that thing unawares. So we need to know what our presuppositions are so that we can be sure we are okay with that. I am okay with this book and the God it describes being the shape of every conversation I come into.
Yes.
I've decided I am okay with that. Right?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, that's how we shape our worldview.
Yes.
And we have to be okay with having that level of a boundary because, again, that goes back down to another logical fallacy of circular reasoning.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Which you get into really quick if you won't accept presuppositions.
Right.
But here's the thing. How do I have a conversation with someone who does not share my presuppositions? Some people would say you can't. I don't like that answer. There's a whole branch of Christian apologetics, the art of defending the faith, that is, as you know, called presuppositional apologetics. And they've done really good work. But their view, as I understand it, now again, here's a good example. You're hearing someone describe a point of view from a position of disagreeing with that point of view. So don't form your view of presuppositional apologetics off of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because I don't buy it.
Yeah.
But as I understand it, I don't believe that they believe there is a basis to have a conversation with someone who does not at least presuppose the existence of God.
Yeah.
I don't care for that presupposition of theirs. So I don't subscribe to that school.
Yeah.
But I understand why they believe that, because it is very challenging to have those conversations.
100%.
And not only that, but I've gained a lot of value from reading what they have to say because they've really thought it out very well. And it really points at some very challenging issues with how we interact with a world that does not serve the God we serve or acknowledge him.
Yeah.
And that's an example of why it's okay to let people let them. Like, I don't need to change the mind of a presuppositional apologeticist. We agree on Jesus. That should be all I need because that's my presupposition.
Right.
I should be okay with them holding that view because I am gaining great value from hearing what they have to say about it, but I don't have to buy it, and I haven't. To me, it fails at a point.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So if you are, because I would agree that the starting point, I think if you're truly going to be fishers of men, we can't enter into the conversation with somebody who disagrees with my worldview completely with, well, unless you have a ground starting point, we can't have discourse. That just means you may have to plow harder and go deeper and listen longer, but that shouldn't be a non-starter, right? I think it comes down to the weight of the evidence. So it's like if I'm speaking to you...
That's called evidential apologetics.
Right. So if I'm talking to you and you already presuppose there is nobody, there is no creator. And that's just your framework, right? And I'm already entering the conversation with, well, there has to be a creator based upon a number of factors, right? I would enter that conversation with, this is my evidence that I'm presenting. You present your evidence on why you feel there is no creator, and now let's weigh the evidence.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm wanting to get at is really what this should do. And I don't even know, in fairness, because I'm not one, I don't know if a presuppositional apologeticist would totally disagree with what we're saying here or not. I really don't. But I believe what it does do is it impacts the nature of the conversation we can have. So it takes some conversations off the table. So appeal to authority is almost always a logical fallacy, right?
Yes.
I would say that is probably not true within the context of conversations where we all agree on who God is and what this book represents, because we can appeal to this authority without it being a logical fallacy, because we have pre-agreed on this book as the standard, right? But if I come into a conversation where we don't share that, and an example is if someone tells you they are agnostic, meaning they don't know whether or not there is a God, that's one conversation, right? It's an entirely different conversation when somebody comes in as an atheist. Even there, though, when people give you a label, ask them to describe it to you.
There we go.
And this goes back to...
There we go.
Right? This goes back to what we were talking about the other day about, I can't think of his name, that examined the California curriculum and all of that.
Oh, Richard Feynman.
Right. When we were talking about the art of thinking, Feynman talks about forget labels, describe things, describe realities, right? Labels can be so unhelpful because they can mean such different things to different people.
Yes.
So one of the best places to start, I think, is when someone gives you a label telling you what tribe they're in, ask them to describe that label to you.
Because what does that mean to you?
Right.
Because you may be attaching a label to yourself and you don't necessarily even fit that label, but that's just been the team colors.
I'll tell you from personal experience, I have had an atheist say to me the classic thing that I think a lot of us expect. It means that I believe there is no God. That's one thing. But I've had another atheist say to me, self-described atheists, both of them, say to me, not atheist means I believe there is no God. I've had them say, it means that I believe that in order to affirm the existence of a God, I would have to see incontrovertible, falsifiable evidence of the existence of such a God, and I think that that is logically impossible to produce. Therefore, I cannot affirm the existence of a God. Well, it's subtle, but that's not the same thing.
That is not. It's saying that they don't believe that we can provide enough evidence.
And with the one person who says that, maybe the conversation shifts to, what evidence would work?
Yeah.
Or maybe the Holy Spirit gives you more wisdom than that in the moment. But with the other person who says there is no God, now I'm rubbing my hands together, because the burden of proof then is not on me. I'm no longer the one making a claim.
No.
They are the one making a claim.
Right.
And now I can force them to prove that to me. Prove to me that there is no God, which also, apropos of the point being made by the more thoughtful second atheist, is not provable.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, the most productive discussion I've had with people like that is, you're having a conversation about faith as though it were a conversation about science. Can we maybe consider that there might be a different set of presuppositions that should undergird a conversation about faith? Because we know that at the end of the day, faith involves taking a leap, All we're trying to do is close the gap to the point that you would feel comfortable leaping.
Come on.
So if we're willing to slow our roll, it's very limiting when someone will not share the most foundational presupposition that there is a God. It is the God of Israel.
Yeah.
And he is as he is described in the Old and New Testaments of the Bible.
Come on.
That is very limiting if they won't agree to those. However, there can still be a conversation had. And you can see people in the New Testament doing this. You can see Paul deciding to appeal to a presupposition that would make most Christians deeply uncomfortable, which is that this altar to the unknown God on Mars Hill is actually an altar to the living God. Think about how far he was willing to go to find a presupposition. When Paul said, I have become all things to all men, if by any means I might save some.
He meant that.
He meant it. Because this man walked into a pagan temple, arguably the seat of Satan, the very seat of Satan, and saw an altar. All he needed was for it not to be labeled to a false god. And he was like, I can work with that. They believe it's an altar to the God that they don't know.
Yeah, just in case.
I'll agree with them. Yeah, that is. Let me tell you about him, because I know him. So,
This is genius.
Right. And also, he was using an appeal to authority, but it was an authority they both agreed on.
Yes. 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 That's so good.
Right?
Yeah.
Jesus would say, even your own scriptures say. There's ways.
Yeah.
But it's not helpful not to acknowledge our own presuppositions and the conversations that those will not allow us to have with people who don't share them. We're not there yet. Can't have that conversation.
No. That's good.
Then there's you have another one you want to throw up?
I mean, I do, but like, I want to hear what you have.
Well,
found
this one's an easy one. False dichotomy.
Oh yeah.
Or
Yeah.
false. What's a simpler way to say that? False dilemma. False dilemma. You got a good example of that?
I'm trying to think.
So
it's like when you present two options when more exist.
yeah, I mean, a humorous example that a lot of, like, this is a dad joke that kind of leverages false dichotomy. Do you still beat your wife?
What?
Right. What shuts you down about that?
Yeah, it's like,
do you still beat your wife? I have framed the conversation inside of a false dichotomy.
Right.
Because either you do now and you did back then, or you did back then and you don't now.
That's good. Yeah.
That's a false dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
And we find it funny because of the surprise factor. Because somebody says, do you still beat your wife? You want to jump to no, because obviously I don't beat my wife. But then on your way to no, you realize you're going to trip over.
I never did. Like,
right.
What are you talking about? Right. Yeah.
False dilemma.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a silly one, but it is an example of it.
I think that goes down to when somebody, I think those false dichotomies work hand in hand with the straw man, because they've already misrepresented your position and they've already put you inside the prison of a reality that they don't necessarily belong in at all.
Yeah, it's funny. If you look at logical fallacies closely, they're all actually very closely linked.
Mm-hmm. Or they can be built upon each other.
Yeah, and kind of codependent.
Yeah.
Because, again, this does go back to the serpent in the garden. There is false dilemma there. did God really say this straw man thing, or did he not? You know, and Eve falls for it. Yeah, he did say that. Well, that wasn't your only option. You could have also set the record straight, but you got tricked.
I think one of the biggest examples in that story is Adam, when he was faced with the consequence. In his mind, it was either participate in eating of the fruit or blame the wife that God gave.
Right.
It wasn't take responsibility. It wasn't repent. It wasn't, oh, you've already eaten of the fruit, Eve? Okay, now I'm going to go to God and try to see what we can do to undo what has taken place. He kind of backed himself in the corner of like, these are the only two out. Like, this kind of going back to what you were saying, how we lie to ourselves or we tell ourselves some of these logical fallacies because this helps bolster us up into whatever group that we're in, that we identify with, whatever team that we're, cheering for. It's dangerous.
It's funny because this little AI summary thing, well, it's better than an AI summary. It's a perplexity answer, which it's better than the AI summary. But anyway, under false dilemma or false dichotomy, it calls that only two options, which is what it is. But here's how it describes it. Presenting a complex issue as if there are only two choices. But listen to their examples. For us or against us. So they start with tribalism.
Yep.
For us or against us. Smart or stupid. So they go from tribalism to personal ego. Smart or stupid. Good or evil.
They just reduce everything to black and white.
Good or evil.
Yeah.
Good and evil operating system.
Yeah.
So even the little AI answer here is really doing a fairly good job of describing where this comes from. Tribalism, ego, knowledge of good and evil operating system. It's reductive. Reductive things are problematic because they flatten issues out. All of the nuance. Hey, y'all, we need to become so comfortable with gray area.
That's that going back to holding things in tension without judgment.
Dude. Gray area is crucial because most truth lives in nuance. If you really want to do justice to it, that's why Paul tells, is it Timothy or Titus? Rightly dividing the word of truth. That word, orthomeo, like a surgeon. Use a scalpel, not a butcher knife.
Right.
This why it fails. Real life usually allows many options, combinations, and degrees in between extremes. How it looks in public discourse. If you don't support this policy, you don't care about enter tribe here. Either we keep everything exactly as it is or civilization collapses, which, yes, is false dichotomy, but it's also that slippery slope thing we haven't gotten to yet. Ads, you either buy this brand or you're part of the problem. How to spot it. Watch for either or, for us or against us, no middle ground, especially on complex topics. Ask yourself, can I think of a third option? If yes, it's likely a false dilemma. I can't tell you how much this plagues me. You know that monk line about it's a blessing and a curse? It's just like I'm saddled with a brain that works this way. I can almost always think of a different point of view, even than the one I'm presenting, that has something to it. And that kills me, like when I'm preaching or teaching, I constantly feel the need to answer objections, most of which are not in the mind of my listeners. But it's because I am just constantly aware that there could be a different way to see this, and I don't want someone to miss this message. Because a lot of times you can dismiss the elephant in the room just by naming it. A lot of times people who do think quite critically just need you to acknowledge that you're aware that this other point of view exists so that they can let go of it and hear you. But either or thinking doesn't really allow for that conversation.
I have found that to be something I've dealt with. But what I've dealt with even more, and I know this is probably going to get you too.
Oh, boy.
It's the appeal to emotion.
Yeah.
And I think we, especially we being Christians, when we're touching on real sensitive subjects that do have nuance to them, whether we want to admit it or not. Something as polarizing as, let's say, abortion. And you can easily...
Jumping straight in.
I know.
We're only an hour and 46 minutes in. You think we can bring this up yet?
Something as like polarizing as that topic is, right? We can easily just be like, oh, you just want to, stop babies from breathing.
Yeah. And on the other side,
right,
you just want rape victims to have to bear the seed of their abuser for 9 months.
Right.
Risk their life in childbirth. Like, these are the ways this conversation is framed to us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's just appeal to whatever the emotional trigger is. And in whatever camp that you're in, you're going to, like, respond to it, especially if anybody is dog whistling.
And they all are.
Yeah. You're going to respond to it.
If you just like if someone wanted to go on a little journey of self-examination here, and this would work either side of this divide that you're on, and I say you can hear it implicit in the language that I'm using, either side, right there, because an issue like this has become so literally polarizing that not many people are thinking in terms of much nuance in this conversation. It's pretty much us versus them, period, right?
Period.
Take a look at that conversation. Don't compromise your beliefs. I'm not saying that at all. I'll just say this just to, again, dismiss the elephant from the room for a lot of believers. My views on this issue really haven't migrated substantially over the years. My awareness of nuance has grown.
Same.
Absolutely.
Same.
But the fundamentals for me pretty much are what they are, which kind of goes back to
the presupposition,
being rooted in the presupposition, right?
Of the author of life. Yeah.
Right. That being said, I don't believe this conversation in any way, shape, or form is being had honestly in the public square. And as a result, probably 98% of the public, at least in this country, in the United States, are actually victims caught in the crossfire of a shootout that's not even theirs. Because this, one thing that it's important to do is recognize when a conversation is very susceptible to the emotional appeal fallacy, because our political class, our ruling class, our elite class
Right.
lean very heavily into these topics that are susceptible to emotional appeal. Emotional appeal, I think most people probably can gather what we're saying, but to summarize it, it means feel this, don't think.
That's a great way to summarize it. Yes.
And it's trying to win an argument by triggering strong emotions, fear, anger, shame, pity, pride, instead of offering reasons and evidence, which means it's going to be highly sensationalized, which, if you have been with us on this Antikemi journey, should tell you that it is appealing to your lower nature.
Yes. Your sensory.
Yes. Nature. And so the whole conversation why it fails. Emotions matter, but by themselves they don't show whether something is true or effective, because they can be easily manipulated.
Yeah. Probably a lighter example. I don't know if it's that much lighter, but even how we talked about with the pandemic went down with people choosing to wear a mask or not. And the argument came out, well, if you don't wear a mask, you just want my grandma to not be here. It's like, what?
Yes.
And all that's done is just completely derail the conversation.
And one way you can start to track it in public discourse like that is if everybody's saying the same thing, including the same examples.
Yes. That's what mainstream media does.
I mean, Operation Mockingbird is a very interesting rabbit hole. If anybody ever wants to go down that, it is interesting to see the way that the intelligence community weaponized mainstream media, and I'm using past tense very loosely there. Remember, nothing ever gets declassified pretty much that they don't put in the past tense.
Right.
I would be very loath to just assume that the past tense is accurate, right? Like, let's look at evidence. But Operation Mockingbird's a real thing, but it plays out at a much more comprehensive level when it comes to social media, because you get that. Like, how come it's everybody's grandma that you wanted to kill by not wearing your, like, nobody was worried about their aunt? The fact that everyone was using the same example it's not proof, but it's a red flag that there may be social conditioning involved. Because we're not hearing a similar idea from many personal perspectives. We're hearing the same exact trope again and again and again. That should throw a flag on the play for you. This feels a little like manipulation, like conditioning. Again, still picking on the same side of that issue. Trust the Science was similar. It was kind of both an appeal to authority and, I mean, it was a lot of them, it was appeal to authority, and it was also emotional appeal. Trust the science. But then it was happening on the flip side too. Not everybody who wanted you to wear a mask was wanting to come, take your guns and, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of them just didn't want their grandma to die. Yeah. So, like,
when there's nuance there.
Right.
A lot of it.
So when a conversation gets reduced like that, it is by design, and a lot of times you do see it with these things that can be easily reduced to appeal to emotion. So going back to the abortion thing, no matter what side of that you stand on, take a look at the rhetoric from both sides and recognize that the rhetoric is so reductive that it cannot help but trigger a deep-seated emotional response. And it is so diabolical the way that it works. So on the side of conservative Christians, they know that nothing could be more sacred to us than human life as we see it as the gift of the God who created us and the fulfillment of his directive telling us to be fruitful and multiply, right?
Yes.
And then on the flip side, this is how diabolical it is. Women as a broad category in society have been oppressed more than almost any other subset of society, arguably in almost every culture across time. Women have had their rights systematically stripped from them, their God-given rights, I would argue, and rape culture and a complete disregard for their well-being when men wanted to build families has been such a consistent theme through history that it leaves this massive generational trauma issue that can then be weaponized in the same way that the Christian's fidelity to God and the life he created can be weaponized emotionally. This trauma that is very legitimate in the shared experience of women across cultures and time is easily manipulated by a conversation that has been flattened down so far that basically all it can do is pull emotions from the deepest core of your soul.
That's it.
So we actually haven't had this conversation as a culture yet. All we've done is lob grenades at each other.
Yeah, I love it that we can start to peel back the layers of some of these common logical fallacies, because, I mean, as we're doing, this is a part of exiting the matrix, exiting from the rabbit hole that you have found yourself in and the trap at the end where it sucks you even deeper into bondage. It's like, no, I'm being trained how to think and also recognize when these are used against me, when I am starting to actually process things appropriately, the way that they need to be processed. You know what I mean?
Yes, because the Antikemi Posture is not to lie opposite to the wrong side of a debate. It's to lie opposite to the wrong debate or to lie opposite to a debate framed within the wrong operating system. So the Antikemi Posture is when the world presents to you, are you with us or are you with them? Are you for this or are you against this? Your answer is no. In other words, when the system says pick, you say no. I won't pick.
I don't have to.
This is why Jesus said, to what shall I liken this generation? This goes back to the dirty little secret of the dance floor. This generation shall be likened to children crying out to each other. He chose the place very carefully, in the marketplace, in the public sphere where ideas and goods are traded. We danced, we piped, and you didn't dance.
Right.
We played a funeral song for you, and you didn't mourn. He's pointing at this false duality that is underpinned by all of these logical fallacies that we're pointing at tonight. And the Antikemi Posture is to say, I will be here in this marketplace with you. That is my assignment. I will not duel with you at high noon. I'm not here for that.
Yeah. I mean, with that being said, is there somewhere else that you want to go, or I say you can take us on home as far as the Exodus point that I know that you had wanted to bring out earlier.
It's pretty simple, man. Of all the rigmarole around the discussion of end times and last things, so much of it falls prey to all of the fallacies we've talked about and more, because those are just a few. But they all start to go back to the same things. You start to notice that, like bandwagoning. That just goes back to tribalism. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
So much of that conversation, the way it plays out right now, especially on social media, in the public square, is all very it's like cancer riddled with these fallacies that we're talking about. It's not being had from really an honest place, because so much of it is fear driven or power driven or whatever. But a huge piece that seems to consistently get missed is that both the Old and New Testament present this repeating theme, and very heavily the Old Testament, of a prophecy that it is very hard to make the case that it has already played out. There's a repeating prophecy, especially in the Old Testament, but it's picked up on in the New Testament, that there will be a second exodus of God's people from everywhere that they've been scattered throughout the world. And it is constantly framed in terms of every tribe. So, for instance, some people believe that the modern state of Israel is the fulfillment or the beginning of a fulfillment of promises that the Hebrew people will return to their land, right? And some people don't believe that. Some people, whatever, may believe that the Jews that are in Israel are not the actual historic tribe of Judah. Or even if they don't object to that, they may feel that the church is Israel, and so whatever. Some people believe the modern state is that fulfillment, some people don't. But it's hard to argue that it could be the fulfillment of the totality of a prophecy that says
everybody. Yes.
They're all coming back. They're all leaving this system of oppression, and they're all coming back to the promise. That has not happened in history. The Jewish people, and I would say, as someone born ethnically Jewish, there's a lot of reasons why I don't subscribe to the theory that modern Jews have no connection to the tribe of Judah and a few other tribes, a couple other tribes, Levi. Let me just throw this out there, because this is a great example of a conversation where no nuance comes in. I often hear the modern state of Israel being referred to as the Ashkenazi state, and I am Ashkenazi Jewish, so the argument there is these are Europeans, not Hebrews. That argument lacks a tremendous amount of nuance.
It does.
The paternal DNA of Ashkenazi Jews is very deeply tied to that land. The maternal DNA of about 40% of Ashkenazi Jews, not nearly so much, comes from certain parts of the Black Sea region and Europe and all of that, which makes sense. Mm-hmm. We've been there for a long time.
Yeah.
But again, like, I'm not being defensive about that. I'm just saying that conversation contains a lot of nuance.
Yeah.
But even if we were to totally throw out the Ashkenazi connection to the tribe of Judah, there's a couple things we have to recognize. One, Ashkenazim actually do not make up anything close to a majority of the Jewish inhabitants of modern-day Israel. And secondly, so to call it the Ashkenazi state, again, is just kind of lacks nuance, right? A lot of them are in power. That's a fair conversation that we can have. But then you can go further. Let's assume for the sake of the discussion that we are who we say we are, that we are the tribe of Judah and some of Levi and Benjamin, so on. We're not, there's no 12 or 13 tribes there. Like, it's very hard to make the statement, yes, the tribes got very heavily intermingled after the second temple was built and all of that. Still, it is very hard to argue that all of the people that were scattered to the wind have been regathered, right? One of the only ways that I've heard it put that could make maybe a modicum of sense would be if you totally spiritualize the whole prophecy.
Yeah.
And
that's
just
the only way
say
it makes it work. Yeah.
the church is Israel, which
Right.
the church is a part of God's Israel, but I actually have some real objections to that reductive way of.
Well, I mean, that's considered what, replacement theology, right?
Yeah, and I think it fails in the face of it when you really get into it, but we can have that discussion sometime. But even if you spiritualize it to that extent, it has this problem. That is in no way, shape, or form what it would have meant to the original audience of those prophecies.
There you go.
Which is a real problem. It's not a good hermeneutic, a good way of viewing the word, to draw an interpretation of it that would have made zero sense to the initial audience. Because remember, God's word is written for us, not to us. It was written a long time ago to different people.
Different
But it was
culture.
preserved for us. So, okay. What I'm saying, there's a prophecy that I don't believe you can make a real case has been fulfilled, and we never talk about it, or we rarely talk about it. An example is from Jeremiah 16, beginning of verse 14. This is after, God is telling them he's going to hurl them out of the land because of their iniquity. Then he goes in verse 14, therefore, behold, days are coming, declares Yehovah, when it will no longer be said, as Yehovah lives, who brought up the sons of Israel out of the land of Egypt.
Yeah.
But as Yehovah lives, who brought up the sons of Israel from the land of the north and from all the countries where he had banished them. For I will restore them to their own land, which I gave to their fathers.
Yeah.
Behold, I am going to send for many fishermen, declares the Lord, and they will fish for them. And afterwards I will send for many hunters, and they will hunt them from every mountain and every hill and from the clefts of the rocks. For my eyes are on all their ways. They are not hidden from my face, nor is their iniquity concealed from my eyes. Listen to this, because this echoes Revelation 18.
Yes.
Remember when we got into that and it said, come out of her, my people, so you don't partake in her sins. But what was the second part of that? Give her back double for all that she has given, right?
Yes.
For my eyes are on all their ways. They are not hidden from my face, nor is their iniquity concealed from my eyes. I will first doubly repay their iniquity and their sin. This is why I say this prophecy is picked up in the New Testament. Because they have polluted my land, they have filled my inheritance with the carcasses of their detestable idols and with their abominations. And then dropping down to verse 21, therefore, behold, I am going to make them know. This time I will make them know my power and my might, and they shall know that my name is Yehovah. So my point here is this hasn't happened. There hasn't been a complete regathering.
Right.
And I do believe that the true Israel of God includes all of those out of every nation and kindred who love and serve the living God, who are true and faithful to him and called according to his purpose. So it does include the true church of God out of every denomination, all of those that are truly sold out to Jesus, to the Father. So the point is, there is another Exodus coming. And God is saying, wherever you have been scattered, wherever you have found yourself, I'm going to send hunters and fishers. I'm going to pull you back from there. I'm going to discipline you plenty, but I'm going to draw you back, and I'm going to bring you back to the promise. Isaiah 11:11, interestingly. Isaiah 11:11. And this is right after he starts, it's the righteous reign of the branch.
Yes.
It's, then a shoot will spring from the stem of Jesse. So it's the kingdom of Jesus is what is being described. Describes the lampstand, the spirit of counsel and strength, the spirit of knowledge, the sevenfold spirit of God. Has the whole thing about the lion will lie with the lamb, or apparently the wolf will lie with the lamb, whatever. There's that whole deal. All of that. Then we drop down to 11:11. Then it will happen on that day that the Lord will again recover the second time with his hand the remnant of his people. What day? Well, verse 10 says, then in that day the nations will resort to the root of Jesse, who will stand as a signal for the peoples, and his resting place will be glorious. So this is going to happen at the same time as all of the nations come to Messiah. So this is during the church age. In that day that the Lord will recover the second time with his hand the remnant of his people who will remain from Assyria, Egypt, Pathros, Cush, Elam, Shinar, that's Babylon, Hamath, and from the islands of the sea, which is also a place in spiritual geography. And he will lift up a standard for the nations and assemble the banished ones of Israel, and will gather the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Then the jealousy of Ephraim will depart, and those who harass Judah will be cut off. Ephraim will not be jealous of Judah, and Judah will not harass Ephraim, which right now, for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, Ephraim and Judah are at each other's throats right now. That's playing out in the public square. Then they will swoop down on the slopes of the Philistines on the west. They will plunder the sons of the east. Okay, you get the idea. The Lord will utterly destroy the tongue of the Sea of Egypt.
Come on.
That, just going back to the one on spiritual geography, the Lord will utterly destroy the tongue of the Sea of Egypt. and he will wave his hand over the river with his scorching wind. So it finishes, for the remnant of his people who will be left, just as there was for Israel. There will be a highway from Assyria for the remnant of his people who will be left, just as there was for Israel in the day that they came up out of the land of Egypt. There can be no doubt from this verbiage that what is being discussed here is a second Exodus, not the Exodus of Exodus,
right,
of the book of Exodus. Jeremiah 31:8, behold, I am bringing them from the north country.
Yes.
And I will gather them from the remote parts of the earth, among them the blind and the lame, the woman with the child, and she who was in labor with child together, a great company. They will return here. With weeping they will come, and by supplication I will lead them. I will make them walk by streams of waters on a straight path in which they will not stumble. For I am a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn. Hear the word of Yehovah, O nations, and declare in the coastlands afar off, and say, he who scattered Israel will gather him and keep him as a shepherd keeps his flock. Here we're going to get time. It's going to tell us time again. For Yehovah has ransomed Jacob and redeemed him from the hand of him who is stronger than he. So this happens when the Lord has ransomed his people. So all of these prophecies of the second Exodus in the first testament of your Bible, in the Old Testament so-called, are placed within the context of the kingdom of Jesus. And they have to come when he has ransomed his people. So they could not have happened before the church age. They have to happen during the church age. And Revelation 18, I would argue, tells us when in that process they happen.
Yeah.
At the fulfillment of all things. So the point is, if there is a second Exodus, and we have really not been talking about it, we've been so preoccupied with exit, with escape. That's it. We have been so preoccupied with escape via the rapture.
Yeah. Yep.
That we have forgotten about exit via Exodus. God is calling his people from everywhere, every tribe, every nation, every political affiliation, every denomination, every genetic lineage, every socioeconomic class. He is calling honest hearts to wake up and cry out under the oppressor's whip and turn their hearts and their eyes back to the giver of life.
Come on.
And seek his face and find the narrow way. We don't need another Moses. We have one greater than he, who said, I am the way.
That's right.
The truth.
That's right.
The life.
Come on.
So there is a narrow way, a narrow gate that leads into a compression chamber where everything that is not beneficial to our future is squeezed away from us. And the fortitude, the strength of character and mind and spirit that is necessary to inhabit a new realm of existence is pressed into us by the pressure of transition.
Come on.
There is a path that leads to life. And those of us who hear that call, who are awakening to the grotesque magnitude of the lie that has been perpetrated on us that has caused us to think that the way that things are, that the way that we are experiencing the world is the way that it is. And that the way that we have known it is the way that it has to be.
Yeah.
And we are becoming aware that that is a matrix, that that is a false reality overlay, that that is somebody else's agenda being superimposed on our life. For those of us who are coming to that awareness, it is crucial that we recognize that what we are against is never one of the binary options that are constantly shoved in front of us and backed by straw man arguments and appeals to authority and appeals to emotion and slippery slope fallacies and circular reasoning and all of that stuff that protects tribalism and identity and pride and vanity and is fear-based and desire-based and all of that stuff. The way out of this maze, this, as I've said here before and as I've heard others call it, this hall of mirrors, is never to pick one of the false options and stake your flag. The way out is to reject the operating system and learn how to use a new one, and in so doing, become Antikemi, lie opposite to, not the issues, not the tribes, not the affiliations, but the system undergirding them. And in so doing, be emancipated from everything that we've already decided we can't stand.
Yes.
We have nothing but freedom to gain.
And what doesn't need to be attached to you is going to fall off.
So stop holding on.
Yeah. Man, that's such a beautiful picture painted of that second Exodus still ahead of us. There's still something to gain.
Yes.
So if you felt like you have been stuck cycling and buffering and have found yourself frustrated because you know there is something different, something more out there, we're here to help facilitate your journey. Present the guardrails like we've said. A safe place to land, a life preserver in the midst of stormy waters, because it's going to get rocky. It's not slowing down.
Yeah. Decide now, like Paul did, that everything you used to value is worth nothing to you. That your
literally nothing.
Religious affiliation, class distinction, political camps, the opinions of your cousin and your, loved ones. And Paul said, I'll give you my credentials, but in so many words, I wipe my butt with this now. I mean, he used that analogy.
Yeah.
It has the same value to me as what I leave behind in the outhouse because of the surpassing value of the resurrection power of Christ, Jesus working in me. So if you feel it, lean into it, but count the cost and decide now. I just don't care anymore.
That's right. That's right. Well, that is a way to wrap up a season, boy. I tell you what. I think we were able to kind of close some loops, tie up some loose ends, and even pull on a few more threads just to dangle a little bit out there. We are just getting started. This is only the beginning. If you have made it this far, please find your way next time for the next new drop at our new channel, which is at Antikemi the Podcast in YouTube. We look forward to kicking it with you on the live feed on May the 1st, 6 p.m. We're going to be shooting out some more reminders between now and then. But tell a friend to tell a friend to live Antikemi.
To be Hebrew.
We love you guys. We will see you really soon.
Yes.